The warship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star, its hull screaming against the air as it plowed toward the coordinates where their young one had fallen. The Velthari had never known defeat in 300 cycles of conquest across 40 systems, and they would not begin now. Their cub, their precious warrior child, lay somewhere in this primitive world's wilderness, and they would retrieve what remained. Commander Thane stood at the bridge viewport, his forearms clasped behind his back in the traditional mourning posture. The distress beacon had gone silent 6 hours ago. The cub's vital signs had flatlined. There would be no rescue, only recovery. Approaching the crash site, his navigator announced, detecting primitive structures nearby. A settlement of the local inhabitants. Arm weapons, Thane commanded. These creatures will answer for what they have done. The Velthari had studied humanity before their scout ship entered the system. They were weak, fragile beings with single hearts and inadequate muscle density. Their world was soft, their technology laughable, their lifespan barely a tenth of a proper species. They had touched their own moon only recently, a feat the Velthari accomplished in their Bronze Age. The warship settled into a hover above a cluster of wooden buildings. Thane led the retrieval team down the gravity beam, each warrior bearing enough firepower to level the settlement. His secondary heart hammered with grief and rage. The cub had been his sister's offspring, barely 50 cycles old, eager to prove himself on his first scouting mission. The humans emerged from their structures slowly, cautiously. Thane counted perhaps 30 of them, their soft faces turned upward. Not one of them ran. Not one of them screamed. They simply stood and watched as the warriors descended. "Where is our young one?" Thane demanded, his translator rendering the words into their crude language. "Where is the body?" An old human stepped forward, his face creased with age, his hair white as snow. He carried no weapon. He raised his hands in what their database suggested was a gesture of peace. "Your child lives," the old human said. Thane's rage crystallized into something sharper. "Do not lie to extend your miserable existence. We monitored his vitals. We know he is gone." "Your technology told you his heart stopped," the old human replied. "It did not tell you what happened next." The human turned and gestured toward the largest building. The doors opened and 2 humans emerged, supporting a third figure between them. Thane's breath caught in all 3 of his lungs. The cub lived. He was broken, certainly. One arm hung useless, wrapped in primitive cloth. His leg was splintered with wood and metal. But he walked. His eyes were clear. He was alive. "This is impossible," Thane whispered. His heart stopped. "We recorded it. 6 hours with no pulse. Come inside," the old human said. "Let me show you what we did." Thane wanted to refuse, wanted to take the cub and leave this world as ash, but something in the human's voice stopped him. It was not fear. It was not defiance. It was something else entirely, something the translator could not capture. The building interior was primitive but clean. The humans had cleared a large space, and in its center lay a table surrounded by strange equipment. Monitors blinked with readouts in human script. Tubes and wires lay coiled like sleeping serpents. "Your child's craft came down in the forest," the old human explained. "The impact was severe. By the time our people reached him, he had been without a pulse for 4 minutes. Then he was dead," Thane said flatly. "Velthari cannot survive more than 2 minutes without circulation." "We didn't know that," the old human replied. "We only knew he was a child who needed help." He gestured to a younger human, a female with strong hands and steady eyes. She stepped forward. "I am a doctor," she said. "When we found him, I did what I would do for any human child. I began chest compressions. I forced air into his lungs. His physiology was different. but the principle was the same. Every cell needs oxygen. Every heart can be restarted if you act fast enough. Thane stared at her. You touched him? You put your mouth on him? I breathed for him when he could not breathe for himself, the doctor said simply. For 11 minutes, I manually pumped his heart with my hands against his chest. Then it started again on its own. The old human continued. His injuries were severe. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, what we believe was a punctured lung. We have no knowledge of your biology, no training in your medicine. But we have been healing our own kind for thousands of years. We adapted what we knew. He pointed to the monitors. We had to guess at his blood chemistry, his medication needs, his nutritional requirements. We got some things wrong at first, but we kept trying. We kept learning. We kept him alive. Another human spoke up, this one young, barely more than a cub himself. I gave him my blood when he was bleeding out. We didn't know if it would work, if our blood types would match. The doc said it might kill him, but he was dying anyway, so I told her to take what she needed. Thane looked at the boy's arm, saw the mark where a needle had been inserted. This fragile creature had opened his own veins for a being he did not know, from a species he had never seen. Why? Thane asked. The word came out broken. Why would you risk yourselves for him? We are your enemies. We came to scout your world for conquest. If he had completed his mission, our fleets would have followed. Your entire species would have been enslaved or destroyed. The old human met his eyes. We didn't know that. And even if we had, it wouldn't have mattered. He was a child. He was hurt. That was all we needed to know. The doctor spoke again. In our profession, we take an oath. It's very old, from before we even knew other worlds existed. It says we will do no harm. It says we will preserve life wherever we find it. It doesn't say only human life. It just says life. Thane felt something crack inside his chest, something he had carried his entire existence without knowing it was there. He walked to where the cub sat between his caretakers and knelt before him. Are you well, young one? He asked in their own language. The cub nodded. They are strange, uncle. They are weak and soft, and they break easily. But they are strong in ways I do not understand. They sat with me through the dark hours when the pain was worst. They sang songs to me in words I could not comprehend. They held my hand. One of the humans who had been supporting the cub, a male with scarred hands and gentle eyes, spoke. He was scared. Pain and fear are universal. So is comfort. Thane rose slowly. He looked at his warriors, saw the confusion in their faces. They had come prepared for battle, for righteous vengeance. They had found something they had no context for, no training to handle. We have wronged you, Thane said to the assembled humans. We came with weapons and rage. You met us with healing hands and open hearts. You didn't wrong us, the old human replied. You're a father trying to save his son. We understand that too. I am his uncle, Thane corrected. His father fell in battle 10 cycles ago. Then you're a family member trying to save a child, the old human said. The specific relationship doesn't matter. The love does. Thane accessed his command console and began transmitting. The fleet in orbit would receive his report. They would learn what had happened here. They would learn what humanity truly was. Commander, his weapons officer said quietly, our orders were clear. We were to retrieve the cub and sterilize any witnesses. Our orders were written by those who did not know what we would find here, Thane replied. He turned to the old human. We will leave your world in peace. More than that, I will recommend to the High Council that humanity be granted protected status. No Velthari ship will threaten you again. We appreciate that, the old human said. But I hope you'll do more than just leave us alone. I hope you'll remember what happened here. Not just with us, but with yourselves. Explain, Thane commanded. You came ready to destroy us because you thought we'd killed your child, the old human said. But you didn't attack first. You asked where he was. Even in your grief and rage, you wanted to know the truth before you acted. That's not the behavior of a monster. That's the behavior of someone who values justice over revenge. The doctor added, and you're listening to us now, instead of taking your child and leaving. You're trying to understand. That takes courage. It takes wisdom. Thane looked at the cub again, at the crude but effective medical care, at the humans who had spent days caring for a being who could have been their goo. We thought we knew what strength was, Thane said. We measured it in weapons, in conquered worlds, in the fear we inspired. We were wrong. Strength comes in many forms, the old human agreed. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is save a life instead of taking one. The Velthari prepared to leave, carefully loading the cub into their ship's medical bay. The humans had provided detailed notes on their treatment, their observations, their guesses, and adaptations. It was primitive compared to Velthari medical science, but it had worked. Against all probability, against all logic, it had worked. As the warship lifted off, Thane watched the settlement shrink below. The humans waved, and the cub, leaning against the viewport, waved back. Uncle, the cub said quietly, they told me something before you arrived. They said that humanity has a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. They said I was part of their village now, for as long as I needed to be. Thane placed